Oh, here, Heather Dixon Wallwork. I might as well throw this in because it's the same basic question. How can Episode 9 save the franchise of Star Wars? Well, Star Wars Episode 8 undid virtually all of Star Wars, so now you got to you can't just plaster another movie onto the tail end of it and hoping that fixes it. You've got to go in and you've got to deconstruct. If it were up to me, Episode 9 would go in and deconstruct 7 and 8. I don't know how I do it just yet, but seriously, it's the kind of thing that needs like Luke wakes up in bed and he's like, it turns out the whole thing about Rey and everything else was just a dream, and Han Solo's there, and and they're having a party outside or something. You'd have to really, really, really go around, and this is where it gets interesting for me too. This is a bit like the Facebook issue and the Twitter issue, and that is, who owns this stuff? It's clear I'm a conservative and I have principles, and I don't bend those principles because it's inconvenient. It's crystal clear to me that Paramount owns or CBS owns Star Trek. They have copyrights on it, and that those need to be respected. And same thing is true for Star Wars. Is owned by Walt Disney Company now. It's their property. But if you ever, there's a great documentary called "The People versus George Lucas," and this entire issue is the entire theme of the movie, and that is who does it actually belong to? There's no question that it's owned by these people, but who does it actually belong to? And they make the case, and I think it's a pretty good case, that that it belongs to the fans who have put the billions and billions of dollars into it, and that's trivial compared to the endless, uncountable man hours or woman hours of devotion and brain power. All of these fan fictions, I would take virtually any fan fiction that I've read about Star Trek or Star Wars in place of what they've given us with Discovery in the last and Episode 8, because the fans love the franchise. They don't love the money, and they love the franchise. They love the idea. And just because you're a fan doesn't mean you can make a good movie, but certainly you can write a better movie. I've heard 100 people write better scenarios for Star Wars and Star Trek than what the studios deliver. And one of the things that's so painful about going to watch like a Star Wars movie or watch Discovery is just how weak they are compared to stuff I've seen fans do. I mean, they're just terribly, terribly weak compared to what just regular people are doing. Star Trek Continues or whatever with we talked about him a week or two ago with Vic, forgotten his name. That was fantastic work. It was better than the original series. The supporting cast wasn't as good, but he was as good as William Shatner, and the lighting and the care they took to get it exactly right, that was magnificent work, magnificent. And if it were me, I would have asked Vic Mignogna, whatever his name is. I would have said, "Hey, Vic, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna buy your series. I'm going to want you to not be James Kirk. I'm going to want you to be another guy, but at the same time. And instead of the Enterprise, it'll be the Saratoga or it'll be the Constellation. I want you to bring it in. I want you to do it exactly the way you did it, but I don't want duplication of Kirk. And the reason I don't want the duplication of Kirk is because then we have to duplicate Spock and McCoy, and your Spock is passable and your McCoy is terrible. But yeah, bring me in Captain Flint from the USS Constellation 1707 or whatever it was, and let's go tell that story. And I think that would have been enormously successful. You've got a problem with the retro thing and people's expectation of effects and so on, but in any event, I sure wouldn't have done Discovery and Axanar. See, Axanar takes place in the period before the original series, which means that the effects, or at least the ship design and things like that, are kind of clunky looking. But it's it's just so interesting. It's so well written as a drama that you kind of want to stay with it. You can punch up the special effects. So when they remastered the original series with new effects on a couple of episodes, I thought it was great. I really did. I thought it was fantastic. So anyway, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Natasha, my darling, my love, you can call the Uber now, and she's going to head over here. And we are going to head over the hill and go watch Apollo 11. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about with that next week. Thank you for the kind words about the firewall. Deeply appreciate it. And I'll upload that now as well as this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Put them both up there right now before we get going. So thanks everybody for joining us. And if you are one of those people who were a member and you either fell off the wagon or leapt off the wagon on account of the wagon being on fire, we would sure love to have you back, because I'm serious about this. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Is that the actual quote? Something like that. Anyway, all right, guys, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And as soon as I find my correct control panel, which turns out to be this of the many windows that I've got here, I will now bid you a very fond adieu.